Rob J gave me an incredibly generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon and brings you today's video. Etali versus Kenrith, Delina and Roshin. Now, if our opponents keep their opening hands, are we to assume that they like the cards in their hand? It's probably a safe bet. We could get into ramp in the early game, but if we don't, we just Wheel of Fortune our opponent's cards that they want to keep and hopefully get them into a worse hand. And we can't get into a much worse hand than that, so ours should be better. I'll try this one. Seeing a gamble from Delina on turn 1, to which a Barbarian class is discarded, so we'll assume that he got what he wanted, and it was likely a Mana Crypt. Into a Ruby Medallion, making red spells cost 1 less, so we'll potentially see Delina next turn. So unfortunately, this Wheel of Fortune is going to play right into Delina's hand. Okay, and just another land for us, so can get down a tap dual land, play Command Tower next turn and likely get down Rogue's Passage for the Wheel of Fortune before we discard it. Roshin gets down a 3 visits. Not seeing Delina, instead it is Emberwild Captain, so that might suggest they've got some means of haste available to them. Don't feel too bad wheeling them if they're gonna draw cards with the Monarchy for the next few turns. Now it's Enlightened Tutor from the Kenrith at the beginning of their turn, or at the end of Delina's turn I should say. And they tutored out a Mana Crypt here as well. I was debating whether or not to... I noticed I don't have Manaval or Grim Monolith in the deck, and I was debating whether or not to do it, but thought it was a little bit too try-hard, because Etali's good at the best of times. Wishing I'd done it now that we're seeing all this fast mana. And then Vidalcan Orrery from the 5-colour player. Okay, Conjurer's Closet obviously would have been good with the Etali, but we're not going to be playing anything else other than Wheel of Fortune by the looks of it. If we get into a Cultivate or something, I'll play that. But it's likely the Wheel, as we thought it would be. Roshin Meanderer is the first commander into play. Yep, and there we see the haste that we thought our opponent might have, so Swiftfoot Boots comes down, 4 cards left in our opponent's hand. Seems to be missing lands though. And the 4-2 now swinging into the right against the Vidalcan Orrery. And there's a Harmonic Prodigy for 1 mana as well. Obviously the Delina is a Shaman. So Kenrith just dropping a land and is going to play at instant speed, as you would expect. Okay, Cavern of Souls. Do we value that over Rogue's Passage? I don't think there's going to be too much counter magic from Kenrith, so obviously it's difficult to tell because we don't know what deck the Kenrith player is playing here. But let's attempt ourselves a Wheel of Fortune. The Cavern of Souls obviously wouldn't have made that uncounterable anyway, but it does help us to get down our commander. Alright, so Kenrith playing something before discarding, we hope. It's not a counterspell. Alright, Karn Legacy Reforged, so it's a 5-colour artifact deck. So we send Roshin up by a card, 3 cards here and 4 cards for the artifacts player. And didn't get into a land in all that. Luckily did get a Farhaven Elf that we can ramp with. There's the Topiary Stomper as well, which is some ramp, but yeah, not getting into lands in all that is pretty bad. At least we cleared a bunch of cards off the top to get us closer to land drops though. That is a Shadow Spear for the X player. Vastwood Hydra comes down where X is 6. Now Delina into play. Our opponent did manage to make a land there. And Swiftfoot Boots obviously going on to the Delina. Deciding not to swing in though. We're obviously an open target here, but yeah, deciding not to swing in curiously. Now Karn going to make 3 mana at the beginning of the turn. Noteworthy that Delina does have an Anger in the bin here as well. So all the stuff will have haste regardless of the Swiftfoot Boots. Joyra Weatherlight Captain into play now in order to draw the 5-colour player some more cards. Alright, and the X-Spells player has decided to leave us, so let's see here, that is Call from the Grave, and we block that player. Then we see Phyrexian Metamorph, obviously an artifact-based clone effect, comes down as Emberwild Captain, so this player is now the Monarch, and they did draw a card from the Joyra there as well. So both our opponents sticking at 7 cards by the end of the turn. A land would be nice here. Okay, and we do manage to get into one, that's really good, so we're just continuing to go slow here. We'll go for the Farhaven Elf, we're up against fast mana. Alright, a Vandal Blast, which has been overloaded by the looks of it, is going to trigger Prowess on the Prodigy, but more importantly, wipe out the artifacts from this player here, which Yeah, I don't mind seeing the back of these artifacts, to be honest. So all those artifacts successfully wiped out here. Noteworthy there's a Castle Embereth over here as well. So now Delina deciding to swing in now that we're starting to get the ramp on the go. And swinging in with both creatures here, so yeah, this is going to be 7 damage at least that we take here. And looking to take the monarchy back, getting a copy of the Emberwild Captain. Delina obviously triggering twice here thanks to the Harmonic Prodigy, so another 4-2 entering. And the 2 4-2 tokens go into the right here, so the damage is being spread about here. The Farhaven Elf, do we care about? Yeah, the extra 1 damage I don't think is going to be relevant. I don't think the commander damages either, but just in case I'll block the Delina and take the extra point. Unnatural Rites from the 5-colour Kenrith player, reanimating Khan Legacy Reforged. And the 3-2 Joyra turns in towards Delina, who only has a 1-3 to throw in the way, so they will become the Monarch here. Okay, a Pathbreaker Ibex for us, so we just have to continue to ramp here. I think this brings it in tapped, yeah, unlike Wood Elves, so we just have to go for some more ramp on turn 5, going way slower than our opponents. If we made a land there, it would have been nice to get down Rhythm of the Wild as well, but hopefully these two players are just going to continue to throw their toys at each other. Noteworthy that the Topiary Stomper can't attack or block either. We are just 1 land away from that though. Fanatic of Mogis, that's a good one to get copies of. Devotion is 4, and Kenrith is down to 13 life already. And now we see a Goblin Bombardment as well for even more damage, followed by a Hoarding Ogre to make some treasure tokens. 4 cards left in hand over there, so yeah, our whole wheel tactic didn't really work out for us. Weren't accounting for the fact that people would get down fast mana, which is it's been a bone of contention on some of my decks. People say, no, it's not casual because you play Mana Crypt, but as we're seeing here, everyone on Magic Online plays Mana Crypt, so yeah, probably should have accounted for that when I kept this opener. Anyway, pointing the copy at the Mogis, so knocking this player out. And obviously the more copies that come down, the more devotion to red there is, so we're probably done here as well. And there we go. Getting dealt with by turn 6 before we've even done anything, so interesting game to show off I think, but we should play another one and actually see some Etali action. Playing against Aesi, Isshin and Kaalia this time. And again, we don't have any ramp in that opening hand, so let's not make the same mistake twice. Let's try and get into it here. Okay, Farseek and Dockside could help us out. Garrett can refill our hand, so yeah, Conjurer's Closet, Goreclaw's ramp as well. That's a pretty good hand. Aesi starting out with a Leyline of Anticipation, so we're going to get more flash this game apparently. First turn 1 play comes from Isshin in the form of Curse of Opulence. And they decided to enchant the Aesi player with that, so we should all be attacking over here if we want some treasures apparently. Already got 2 treasures off the dock side, and we could make more if we don't feel as though this player is going to get creatures into play. Landfall does seem to do well getting creatures in though, so won't rely on that. Drawing into a forest is good, so just play out the Farseek here. Obviously the Simic player is playing at instant speed. We'll probably get something down at the end of Isshin's turn. Isshin playing another enchantment, Circle of Flame. And now a Harrow from the Aesi player, doing that on his main phase, so wanting to hold up double green maybe. Sacrificed a forest to make a couple more forests, and summoning Sickness away from the Birds of Paradise. No real means of, or no real need to do that during his main phase. Could have just dropped that at the end of Isshin's turn. There's every chance that that could be removed. Won't be much point in spot removal at it though, in all fairness. Alright, so we're curving out much better this time. Let's go for the Goreclaw, I think. We might even be able to get down the Great Henge next turn, although I think it would make more sense to try and get down the Garrick. That obviously relies on us getting into another land though, but so does the Great Henge, now that I think about it. First commander of the game, Kaalia, Zenith Seeker. And revealing to us a Aurelia the War Leader's a scary one. And Demon of Dark Schemes can kill off some smaller creatures. Not a single creature from Isshin yet. A Veteran Soldier, legendary enchantment background. I see Tyrant of the Gaia Strait, and not getting down any lands into that, curiously. Not sure why our opponent's not playing at instant speed. Alright, there's a land. So do we... We've got some choices here. We can go the Great Henge, Garruk, Etali. If everyone's just slamming down their commanders, are we to assume that there's no board wipes incoming? So it's probably alright to go for Etali, I think. So getting down a turn 4 Etali is pretty obnoxious. Exile Zone, we see an Unburial Rites with no targets, Curse of Disturbance, a Scavenging Ooze, and a 3 visits, so we do get a little bit of ramp this turn at least, which is probably the best thing there. We'll cast it all anyway though. And the curse can enchant the Simic player, so we'll start getting some 2/2 zombies. Oh, and I did actually click for the Goreclaw to attack in at the Isshin player there, but then it just jumped through my turn. Okay, Magic Online being weird and laggy again. So we missed 4 damage on the Isshin there. And now Kaalia swings in at Aesi, so hopefully we don't see an early scoop here. I mean, you do have to be wary of the fact that you can't give the Simic player all the time in the world. We get a zombie token thanks to Kaalia attacking in over there. And then the Curse of Opulence will give a gold token to either players as well. And then now that damage has been dealt, we see Rakdos, Lord of Riots. Noteworthy that there's Rakdos Charm, there's Demon of Dark Schemes in the bin as well, and we know that there's reanimation there, so at some point getting rid of that with a Scavenging Ooze could be game changing. Have to keep a lookout for Crucible of Worlds effects from the Simic player as well. Isshin came into play from the Mardu player. Awaken the Woods, where X is 4, will make a bunch of land tokens. And that triggers Aesi a whole bunch, because, like I said, these are Dryad Arbors, so they do trigger landfall and draw a bunch of cards, taking the Simic player up to 8 in hand. And he is able to make another land, and then dropping a Vivid Grove into that as well. If you see the Vivid lands, it can sometimes suggest that it's a more casual deck. If you're not just seeing a bunch of jewels all over the place, the Vivid lands are pretty weak, so it might be that this is a nicer Icy build, but yeah, landfall in Simic is landfall, and we have to be very wary of it. The other land here is a Boro, by the way, so they can make consistent landfall with that if they want to. Discarding a Broker's Hideout to hand size. Okay, now we see a Jeska's Will, so 7 cards in hand over there is going to be a decent chunk of mana, so the Jeska's will effectively pay for itself. So will the Great Henge, so might as well just get that down here. Play it out for 2 mana and it will tap for 2 mana. And as we see more and more gold tokens, it's going to make the dock side more relevant as well. I think getting down Garruk and refilling our hand might be a good idea sometime soon. But let's go for the Jeska's Will here. I'll point that at the Simic player, who has more cards in hand, of course. And there we see a couple of mountains and a Delayed Blast Fireball, which we are going to be casting from exile, so it will do the 5 damage on everything. So I think throw down a mountain, play the Delayed Blast Fireball, and we can't quite transform our commander here to knock someone out with Infect. Don't know if I would necessarily do that anyway, but yeah, maybe we just go for the Conjurer's Closet here, and then we can get some card advantage from Etali, hopefully. There is a single white mana held up over here, as well as a gold token, so Isshin could have some removal held up. We'll try and get rid of this Rakdos. I think it's going to swing in over here anyway, so let's go Goreclaw to the left and the zombie token, and then Etali can swing in to the right. Scavenging Ooze can go down the middle. We're potentially playing into the hand of the Mardu players here because they could get haste, but I think we'll be alright for the turn cycle, hopefully. So Curse of Opulence triggering gets us a gold token. Circle of Flame will put a damage on our Scavenging Ooze as well, which doesn't matter now that Isshin isn't in play. And the Curse of Disturbance makes a zombie token for us. Then our big creatures get a +1 buff and trample from the Goreclaw. So I'm showing my opponents that I'm spreading the damage around at least, but I think everyone will be looking at us regardless now that we've just wiped the board. Rakdos is going to block the Goreclaw, which I'm not against in all honesty. But it does suggest to me that our opponent might be aiming for a board wipe next turn to try and get rid of Etali. So do we go for the Garruk now while we've got the chance to refill our hand. I think it's probably an intelligent idea. Also gets another chump blocker in the way in case we do have to worry about haste. So that will trigger the Great Henge and draw us a card. Dockside obviously going to make some treasures for us. And we already had a gold as well, so we get 6 treasures from the dockside. Draw into a land for next turn is not bad. And obviously we could have played dockside and knocked a player out with Etali, but I'm not sure it's all that fun to be honest, so try and be slightly kind and keep players in it for another turn cycle. Kill off the Garruk straight away, and we draw a bunch of cards. So yeah, just discarding some lands to hand size there, and we'll hold up the Scavenging Ooze so that we can exile stuff from the bin if we need to. Conjurer's Closet. It's tempting to generate more mana with the dockside, but this is an Etali game, so let's flicker Etali. Triggers the Great Henge again to draw us another card and put a plus counter on the Etali. And there we see an Arcane Signet. We cast Hissing Miasma. Whenever a creature attacks you, its controller loses a life. We'll just get that out for the sake of it. Okay, Rampaging Baloths for more tokens is fine. And Rhythm of the Wild is good as well to keep us from getting countered, especially against a Simic player. Rhythm of the Wild comes down before the Rampaging Baloths. We'll put a plus counter on it. Haste isn't all that useful. And it gets another plus counter from the Great Henge. We see a Rogue's Passage now. And then we're through to the discard step. Drew into a Nature's Law as well, by the way. A Jeska's Will from the Isshin this time, without the commander in play. And exiling with that, an Honoured Crop Captain, a Tricycle Land, and Brimaz, so just fishing for a board wipe there, I think. Our opponents have more than one turn cycle here. I'm hoping that they're not going to quit on us just yet. One of them might go down, but I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a selfish play. I'm not sure both of them will go down, is what I was going to say. And they obviously take their curses with them, the cards that we stole with them. They've no idea what the Simic player is going to draw into, which is, it's always weird when people scoop like that. If I'm not going to win, I don't care who else does. Acidic Slime from Aesi. Probably Conjurer's Closet I'd aim for there. Yep, blowing up Conjurer's Closet with the Acidic Slime. And then dropping a Simic Growth Chamber. We'll bounce a land. Still only one land per turn here, thanks to the Aesi going down to that board wipe. Still don't see enough of Delayed Blast Fireball, and it's stupidly good. A really good, usually one-sided board wipe in mono red. Or any red deck, really. And yep, more selfish plays, so... Oh, they take the Scoot Swarm with them, so we can't exile stuff from the bin, which is what I was going to do at the end of the turn. Yeah, so I'm not saying that I would have lost that game. It was looking pretty good, but like I said before, there's another turn cycle in this, and you never know what you're going to top deck into. Anyway, I appreciate this player sticking it out. We'll try and put him out of his misery as soon as possible. Let's go for a Lightning Greaves onto the Etali so that he can't go for some surprise removal on us. Alright, and there we go, the Path to Exile. So that would have saved our opponents from getting knocked out there. I would have knocked out at least one player, with the Etali being poisonous. And yeah, the Mardu player here rescuing our opponents for another turn cycle. And that is exactly why you play it out. We've still got the Lightning Greaves available to us though, so we'll go for a Forest Intact. So let's get down the Rogue's Passage before we discard that or something. Never know if someone's going to play a wheel. We can afford the Etali here, but I think it's going to be more fun to throw down the Apex Devastator, so yeah, let's do that instead. So this is a giant 10/10. It is going to have haste, thanks to the Rhythm of the Wild. Depending on what we get into, we could put a plus counter on it and give it haste with the Lightning Greaves. But this is exactly why I went Lightning Greaves first, because it tested my opponent for spot removal and forced them to use it, giving us a chance to do this instead. Vandal Blast, no point in playing that. Strionic Resonator, we might as well get down. Could copy a Cascade with the Strionic Resonator. Let's see what we get into on this one first before we decide. Skyshroud Claim is more mana for us, so might as well play that. And then, yeah, let's go for the copy onto the Cascade here. Could have held on to the mana to refill my hand with the Hunter's Insight on the Apex Devastator. That would mean not putting Shroud on it though. Okay, this time it is Traverse the Outlands, which is only going to get us 2 mana, unfortunately, because we don't have our commander in play anymore, but we might as well go for it if it's free. I was hoping for some big dumb creatures off the top here, but instead we get a little weenie creature, so All we've done there is ramp a whole bunch, but we do end up with a 10-10 in play, or an 11-11 as it will be. Plus counter on the Farhaven elf. Gets another plus counter from the Great Henge, so this will actually be a 12-12, won't it? Forgot about the Great Henge. And we draw into more ramping Goblin and Narcomancer. This is the ramp turn apparently. So we'll just go plus counter onto this thing. Another plus counter with the Great Henge. Alright, Sylvan Library for 2 mana. Let's put haste on the now 12-12. And yeah, our opponent's not going for any more spot removal, so we'll assume that he doesn't have any. And we'll turn everything in sideways for 14-18 damage. So we'd likely still have 3 players, or 3 opponents left in the game at this point, thanks to that Etali being dealt with. Sylvan Library coming into play at the end of the turn. We might as well get this down because we don't know what our opponent's going to do. Looking like we've pretty much got the game done here though. We do have a decent number of cards in hand. They're good cards as well, and a whole bunch of mana available to us also. Sol Ring for our opponent, speaking of getting mana into Mana Vault. Only 3 cards left in hand. Kaalia back into play, seeing if he can grab anything relevant. And we see there is an Archfiend of Depravity, Scourge of the Throne, and a Crib Swap. Here's a nice bit of tech, because obviously that counts as a tribal spell. Unfortunately, we do have Lightning Greaves to protect our Apex Devastator, and they now can't afford the Crib Swap because they've lost the floating mana. Admirable that my opponent played it out though. Still might have some spot removal he can go for with the Apex Devastator. Likely keep hold of whatever cards we draw with the Sylvan Library here, because we're still north of our starting life total. And that is a Vandal Blast and a Deflecting Swat we will definitely keep. Yeah, I was going to play down the Cogler to get the commander out of the way. So I think all we ultimately do here is go for the Cogler, and that will allow us to shoot the Kaalia out of the way. So Cogler comes down with a couple of plus counters. We obviously fight the Kaalia. Okay, and there is a Terminate onto the Cogler, so let's go Deflecting Swat on the Terminate. We'll have to pay for it because we don't have our commander in play. But yeah, our opponent's really putting up a good fight here, and paired with the other 2 players, he might have done really well. So we'll point the Terminate at the Kaalia instead, and the Cogler trigger will fizzle. Not that it matters, because it's done what it needed to do. And that's exactly why I was looking to remove the Lightning Greaves from Apex Devastator, and then put Rogue's Passage on it and swing in. But I wanted to bait more counter magic out of my opponent's hand, or more interaction out of my opponent's hand, and apparently that was the right move. So we're just turning sideways, and very, very admirable from my opponent there. He's absolutely right to play it out, and yeah, if we hadn't had so much luck in getting into all the ramp and the decent cards, then might have been able to do something about us there, but was left high and dry by his fellow opponents, unfortunately, so didn't do too well in the end. But that's the power of Etali. Not sure if people still want to see Etali Primal Conqueror, but it was probably the most popular commander for this channel from the previous set, so hopefully you all enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to the patrons as ever for their constant support. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.